Hello, good morning, and welcome to another episode of What Do We Do Now? A conversation about the live event industry. Today I'm joined by Paul Cook and Loz Wilcox. Paul, first, say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Paul Cook. I've been a lighting designer working in the events industry for God knows how long, probably 35 years, I don't know, something like that. And yeah, I'm at home.
You're at home, fabulous. And Loz, just introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and where you're from.
Hi, my name's Loz Wilcox. I am an account director for TSL. We are a lighting and rigging company in the rental market.
Fabulous. And Loz, let's stick with you for a moment. So, just tell me, how did you get your start in the live events industry?
So, my dad was chief electrician of a little provincial theatre called the Horth down in Crawley.
Cool.
And after spending my whole childhood seeing him disappear off for work early in the morning and come back in the depths of night, had decided that that was absolutely the job that I didn't want to do. And I was going to go off and find something else, a proper job.
Yeah.
And I got to about 16, and one Sunday morning was rudely awakened in bed because somebody had phoned in sick for a load-in. Okay, you're old enough, grab your boots on, you're coming into work with me. And within about 2 hours, I was completely hooked and have never done
Fantastic.
anything since.
Brilliant. How about you, Cookie? Like, what was your start? How did you get into this game?
This game, yeah, but it was always fun. I mean, I think I started, when I was sort of eight or nine at the school and doing lights and Junior 8 dimmers and pattern 23s and doing the school plays. And
They
when I
had
was allowed
electricity
to, I
back
was
then, did they?
yeah, we did. We'd actually, it was the post-candle era. Yeah.
Post candles,
Um,
very good.
um, and and I just didn't stop after that. I just thoroughly enjoyed lighting shows. I hated being on the stage. I'd rather be behind the scenes. And I just then took it on as a career, and I just somehow managed to work my way through university, got a teaching degree, but then went back into lighting events via theatre projects,
Very
which is
good.
kind of the same kind of genesis of my professional career. I think Loz went through. It was a similar kind of Samson's concert productions, theatre projects, sort of PRG sort of route into where we are now.
And when did you go freelance, or when did you first go freelance, and how long have you been free?
I think I've been freelance since about 1984. I don't
Cool.
know how long that is.
Fantastic. And just to sort of, as you think back, what was your favorite job over the years and why?
Oh, I think they've all been brilliant because it's such a joy to be able to play with lights and to make something look better than it really should be. Probably one of the better things I've ever done was the Range Rover Pepper's Ghost reveal we did in Italy about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That was a culmination of my skill set because I was very much playing a role of designer, set designer, and overall sorting it out type of person, which I think is,
Brilliant.
if people know me, that's what I tend to do most of the time, is sort things out
Interfere
rather
with
than
everything.
exactly. You know me well, yeah.
My favorite thing about you. Um, Loz, how about you? What was your favorite job and why? I guess you see jobs from a slightly different perspective sometimes,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's a really tricky question because I think part of what I really love about my job is the variety. Is that every week, every month is different, a new set of challenges. I loved the events that we worked on over London 2012.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think some crazy projects. We worked with Paul. We lit all the bridges along the River Thames. We lit the London Eye. The stuff we were involved in at the Olympic Park. I think, and that kind of vibe around London that summer was absolutely electric.
Mm.
It's but there's so much variety. I love being able to do a theatre show where you have a month to finesse every cue, every position, every focus. You're able to kind of work through everything. But I think my favourite projects are the ones that involve a bit of lateral thinking. A bit of problem solving. How do we work? Maybe we're working in an environment which isn't necessarily used to having to take into production. That could be,
yeah,
like I said, the London Eye. It could be 300 meters in the top of the air at the top of the Shard and working out the physicality of getting fixtures in place and
yeah.
crew up safely, or you know crazy jobs where we've put 70 searchlights on barges and floated them down the River Thames to be in position for sunrise. I enjoy those kind of collaborative projects where it's a little bit outside of the usual, out of left field. They're the fun ones.
Mm.
Very good, very good. And I suppose just taking on your point there about adaptability and problem solving, there's a lot of that that needs to take place just right at the moment, given the current situation with COVID. Presumably they're having massive impacts on your working lives at the moment. I guess, Cookie, to you, when did it first hit you that things were going to change in the short term?
Yeah, well, you see things in the news, you hear what's going on in early January, but
Mm,
you think, oh well, it's just like SARS, it'll go away. We were working on the Cisco show, and then in Barcelona, and we heard rumors about there being trouble over the GSM conference, and then eventually that did indeed get cancelled, even after the most of
mm,
the Ericsson stand I was involved in was constructed. So we lost Ericsson, and then I was in Geneva. I flew out to Geneva, set up the Geneva Motor Show, and then that got cancelled just the day before rehearsals were supposed to start for the
wow.
press conferences. We went then straight into shooting a press conference, sort of remotely back at Bentley Crew. So that was kind of the window on what was going to happen in the future. It would be more sort of virtual events, although that was rather ad hoc and a bit short with short notice. But that's what happened.
And how about you, Loz? Like, when did you start to realize that things were really, really changing significantly?
Yeah, I think it was the same kind of the same markers. MWC was a big, it's a big shot. It's one of the biggest kind of business to business events in the whole of Europe, if not the world, that takes place. And to see that go, like Paul, at a stage where we had people on site, a lot of exhibition stands were already built. We had equipment loaded on trucks and on its way, and to kind of see that go, I think that was really the point at which everybody sat up and realised that, as Paul said, this isn't going to be like SARS. This isn't going to come and go in a week or a month. This is going to be around for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as you kind of change, as you adapt, as you problem solve, what things are different? What do you think will be different in the kind of near term? Are there things that you think are better or can be better? Tell me a little bit about those, Cookie, to you. What's different, I guess, in the short term in terms of how you're kind of building out shows currently?
Well, I mean, the shows that we can work on are indeed virtual events.
Yeah,
So that would be, internet-based remote studio type events, which I've been fortunate enough to be involved in some of those. I haven't done a bit more architectural planning, to be fair. I've moved into
cool.
architectural lighting design to give another string to the bow, because construction's still happening. They've still got to design buildings. They've still got to do
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
things like that. So that's quite cheerful, but that was
Mm.
never a massive part of my turnover. So at the moment, all my turnover stopped, apart from the occasional
Yeah, absolutely. Like
lighting event.
all of my production management is gone for now. I'm just trying to focus on virtual, like a lot of people are. So, um, you guys put together a project recently that I was a little bit involved in. Like, just tell me a little bit about that, I suppose. Uh, Lars, why don't you kind of talk about what you did there? You kind of provided kit for in-home use, and came up with quite an interesting solution for being able to run that all remotely and robustly.
Yeah, so I think a couple of weeks into into lockdown and the challenges, we'd seen a lot of presentation from people's houses where when you don't have access to production and to skilled staff and to technicians, obviously it's a standard kind of Zoom presentation or a Google Hangout, when it's not lit properly or mic'd properly, can be quite stale. Yeah, that's difficult to get your message across. So the challenge that we were presented with was how do we inject some extra production to make this environment
Mm.
more user friendly, both for the presenter and the audience. So from a lighting perspective, Paul came to us and we discussed some solutions of how we come up with some small kits of studio lights, which can be effectively set up and packaged in a way that they can be sent to the home of somebody that isn't necessarily a technical person. That
Mm.
could be a presenter who's presenting the show. It could be the CEO of the company who is setting this up. So we came up with an instruction manual. We had the guys in our warehouse label and color code the cables so that every single, it was obvious, even if you haven't seen one end of an XLR cable before, that the one with the red tape goes into the socket with the red mark over it. So we came up with them. First of all, that the problem was getting this all plugged in and put together. Secondly, the part of the problem was how do we control it? part of what we want to do with these presentations is be able to put a professional presentation together, which involves lighting, sound, video, all the rest of it. So the solution that Paul and I worked on was being able to control the lighting remotely via the internet.
Amazing.
So networking and network control is something that we do regularly. It's these days it's pretty much every job. We're controlling distributed networks, remote systems. We have multiple lighting consoles controlling the same system. So all we did was we took the learning that we'd made there and looked at how we would expand that. So instead of having a fiber network within a building, we would use the internet to transmit the data from Paul. So Paul's able to be at home with his lighting console. The lights are remote at the presenter's house, and the system enabled us to control them. And I think after working through a couple of systems, we came up with something which was robust. There was we had fail-safe prevention put in. It was it's very simple, and I'm pleased to say it works straight out of the box.
Brilliant. I guess that's the key. The simplicity, I suppose, is really key to that. How about for you, Paul? Was it what was it that you were wanting to be able to achieve? I guess being sensitive to being in somebody's home and in that kind of environment.
Yeah, I mean, part of the challenge was that the equipment had to be put together by the presenter in this case. Fortunately, it was someone that we'd worked with on the Cybos event, Nadine. She was really good. But you have to become the role of the teacher and explain very carefully, given limited time, because obviously their time is valuable, and we had to set up this equipment. And it was quite interesting. She dressed as a techie for the tech day, and she had jeans and a t-shirt on, and she was crawling around the floor and plugging things in, and she did really well. And there was no way she could then go straight into a rehearsal of the show. She had to have another day off to have a little rest, which was quite interesting because she actually was being a tech for the day, which is great, and she was lovely to work with. So there was that. And then the other point was that given remote control of the lighting, one could cope with the lighting changes through in the room. You could do fade outs, fade ins. You could make it comfortable for them, adjust the lighting level so they weren't being dazzled, and make the camera shots as best as possible. Given the scenarios. And I think it was well worthwhile adding that level of detail to the system. I mean, it was partly aided and abetted by a fantastic comm system, which you'll probably talk to when you talk to the audio people about it. But we got together a comm system, which meant it felt just like being on a show, including someone bringing me coffee and biscuits every now and again, which was lovely.
Brilliant. And was there anything about working from home yourself actually that you found different, like with family around, with meal times, breakfast, lunch, dinners? Like, how did you do that, or did you just kind of shut yourself away from everything?
Well, it was great because we ran it like a proper show, and we'd organised. There were schedules, and those schedules had a meal break in it. So at the meal break, whoosh, out I went, see ya, and I went and have a cup of tea like you would do normally on a show. So.
And you were just chatting to your wife. You got to chat to your wife instead of making small talk with the crew.
Yeah. We'd have a little cup of tea together, and then much more pleasant, may I say.
Very good. I think I found a photo of that setup. Can you see that one? It's probably not that.
Yeah, that's right. That's great.
There you go. It's kind of that in-home setup, being kind of sensitive to the presenter's home. But yeah, she was brilliant. She worked with you guys really well, just to make.
And I thought the pop-up backdrop that we put in the place lifts it from either a Zoom overlay or whatever it was. You could tell it was a real backdrop, and I think that worked really well. It gave the sense that we'd added some production values to the whole event.
Yeah, it was a real big thing for the client actually. That just ensuring that the whole piece looked somewhat consistent, I guess, across all of the different people's home environments. But yeah, it certainly worked well just to make it feel like a bit more like one show as opposed to a load of different disparate shows. Is there anything from your experience around, I guess, the financial crisis or 9/11, any lessons or any insights from those terrible situations and the way that those affected the live events industry that we could learn in terms of how we think things may play out over the next 6 to 12 months or longer?
If I may, shall I answer first?
Go for it.
I do always butt in anyway, Loz, you know me. I thought over 9/11 and the financial crisis, I learned from that the corporate world, they tend to realize they've actually still got to communicate. They've still got to advertise. In fact, they've got to advertise more. They've got to get more messages out there to the audiences. So therefore, I feel they'll be more inclined to somehow broadcast their messages to do their training. I mean, all the tech companies, that's what they do. They train people with the new ideas they've got and the new technologies, and trying desperately to gain market share over their competitors. So it's all about communication, and therefore I'm quite buoyant that companies will still need to do that. And we just have to rely upon the agencies that we've worked for traditionally over the years to have that insight and to try and push this communication to still occur, because I believe it still has to, and I'm sure the companies themselves know it still has to. They just need to. One thing we put together was this distributed control room system, so we could have graphics operators, video operators, sound operators, and all the whole crew that would normally put together and aid and abet presenters and CEOs putting together their shows. And that's what's important, that we can prove we can remotely do that, because I think social distancing is still going to be a very, very important part of our lives for the next 6 months, 12 months, who knows. And we've got to work out how to put events together under those kind of regulations. And the more we can distribute the processing, the better. I think we will integrate cloud-based events more into the mainstream of what we do. We'll have remote people. We won't fly everybody to events. We'll only fly the minimum number to do events in studios. Maybe if we're allowed to start doing that. But
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think for Loz's type of business as well, where they have a warehouse full of kit, there's potentially a higher volume of smaller shows. Do you see what I mean? So more regional but connected events. Like, what do you think about how things might happen and
Yeah,
play out, Loz?
I think you're right. Yeah, well, I hope you're right. It's
Yeah.
being able to see. We might not see a big single European show which takes place in Barcelona or Berlin or Paris, and you're looking for 5, 6, 10,000 delegates all to go to the same place. What that might be is, Paul's absolutely right. Companies will still want to communicate, and what we might see is, what I'm hoping we'll see is exactly that: smaller, more regional events. As Mark said, Mark Bannister on your call the other day, instead of one event for 4,000 people, this could take the place of, 10 events for 400 people. This is a different thing. As Paul said, social distancing and the kind of and the various things that we need to change around that will be with us for a while.
Yeah,
definitely. For me, that's the biggest difference out of from having seen this out of the back of the financial crisis in 2008. That was a very different situation, because yes, the world changed and budgets contracted and people wanted to get a lot more for their money. But effectively what we did was we came back to doing things, broadly speaking, in the same way that we had always done things. Whereas I think now we will come back and things will be different. We've seen virtual events take a foothold in the short time that, the relatively short time that we've been on lockdown. But I think they're here to stay. I'm not sure they will ever replace a live event and replace people getting into the communication, a brand launch, a product launch. We might see things done slightly differently. I think over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen much more movement towards experience rather than presentation. This isn't just about the CEO standing on stage with a product and saying, "Hey, look at my new phone or my new car." This is about giving people the chance to go and make their own memories, which they then associate with the product. We've seen lots of environments that we can create, and I think that Alan Law touched on this in one of your talks the other day about being able to have an environment where you can control the amount of delegates. You can give people time slots. You can ticket. You can really manage how and when we put those things together. I think that's going to be a really useful kind of addition to how we do it.
And it may as well, it may also increase the theatrical nature of those experiences by it being a much more kind of timed and controlled experience through people still trying to communicate the message they're trying to communicate, but done in quite a different sort of way, I suppose, than just bringing everyone into a big room and talking to them.
And we are the creative industries, and we all work with dozens of fantastic creative directors and producers who will have spent this time looking at the new rules of engagement and working out, what do we do? How do we put on a production? How do we put on a show? How do we launch a product when we have to deal with what everybody is now calling the new normal? And we have some brilliant minds within our agency who are all looking at finding out and working out solutions to these problems. And that's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. There's a really positive message there as well. Thank you, Loz.
Very good.
In terms, just to, as we kind of finish, what would you, Cookie, first to you, what would you say is the best piece of work advice that you've ever been given? Or is there some sort of kind of little mantra or something that you kind of live by? Or do you have any particular message for the live events community?
Yeah, I mean, the best work mantra I think I was ever given was, just whatever you do, just be honest, and never try and pull the wool over the eyes of your crew or the client or anybody. Just tell it how it is. And I won't.
Smoke and mirrors on stage, but not off stage, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, you can confuse them, but you can't. But you shouldn't. You should always just be honest about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and never try and bullshit.
Very good.
Sounds a bit rich coming from me, but it's true. It's true. I try not to.
Brilliant. How about you, Loz? Is there any kind of piece of work advice that you've sort of lived by over the years?
Almost exactly the same. I think I would always, and the same piece of advice, the same things we talk about in our offices with our teams is look for the long term. Look, what we will always try and aim for is not to try and make the most money out of a particular project or to try and look for the short term gain. It's about trying to make sure that people have a pleasurable experience, that when you work with them on an event, be honest, play it with a straight bat, and if you're good to people and do treat others as well in the way that you would want to be treated, then those customers will come back. Our whole industry is about relationships and personalities and getting on with people and collaboration, and it's not about short-term game and maximizing profit and trying to squeeze everything out. So that's the best bit of advice I was ever given, is look to the long term.
Brilliant. Thank you. We'd love to hear from different people within the industry. It's been great getting such a cross section of people. We've got a couple of industry leaders coming up over the rest of this week, and we've got some creatives and some more kind of event manager side of things going into next week. So really keen for you to get in touch with me if you're interested in taking part in this conversation. Please don't hesitate to drop me a note and let me know. But for today, thank you very much, Paul and Loz. Say goodbye.
Bye. Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dave.
Bye, Dave.
Thanks for now. Bye bye.